I take it as given that everybody here is familiar with and accepts the common assessment. Winston Churchill's war cabinet saved Britain and helped to save the world from Nazi horror. I agree. I would never minimize the greatness of Winston Churchill or his wartime coalition government. We all owe it an unpayable debt. But life is not black and white. Life is not simple. Churchill's war cabinet was not simply a smooth functioning machine. Its members, including the Prime Minister, were high-powered, ambitious, hard men. They had great talent, they had great capacity for work, but also they had great egos. They worked together to save their country, but it was not always smooth sailing. On more than one occasion, conflict within the war cabinet threatened to capsize the ship altogether. Moreover, today we think of Churchill as the indispensable man. It's impossible for us to imagine Britain during the Second World War without Churchill as Prime Minister. But believe me, it was not impossible then, and I'll be explaining that. I want to just pull out the water. In the book, I show how Churchill assembled his high-powered team in May 1940. It included men whose politics conflicted more starkly than do those of American liberal Democrats and Tea Party Republicans today. Socialists like Attlee, Bevan, Morrison, Cripps believed in nationalizing the means of production, distribution, and exchange. No American liberal Democrat believes in that. Cripps, moreover, was not even certain that nationalization could be carried out or maintained peacefully. He thought it might require revolutionary violence. The socialists also believed that government should sponsor far-reaching social welfare programs, more far-reaching than those favored by American liberals today. On the other hand, conservatives like Chamberlain, Halifax, Beaverbrook believed firmly in free enterprise. They thought that government should usually keep hands off the economy. They did not believe that it had a major role to play with regard to social welfare either. And Churchill himself was instinctively a man of the right. Yet, he was determined during the war to keep his disparate team together. And by and large, he did it. In the book, I show how that team faced the problems of the war. For a year, Britain and her empire faced the Nazis alone. And during that period, war cabinet ministers largely suppressed whatever ideological and personal tensions existed among them. But also, I show in the book that once Russia and then America entered into the fray, the war cabinet ministers began to argue. The emergency had eased. Britain seemed likely to win the war after all, and now cabinet ministers could vent jealousies, enmities, strains, always present, but previously always papered over. Ideological conflict grew ever more fierce, and I show how Churchill strove quite heroically, but with decreasing effect, to contain it all. In 1945, Labour pulled out of his coalition government. As soon as Germany surrendered, and with the war against Japan still raging, Churchill called a general election. It proved to be one of the worst tempered of the 20th century. All the pent-up frustrations of the previous 5 years finally burst forth. It was like the long-delayed eruption of a volcano